So it's finally here, after a week and a half of waiting, which you guys have been so patient for. We're finally getting back into the Infinity Gauntlet series, and we're picking up with issue number 5. But in order to refresh you guys, in order to make sure that you guys recall where it was that we left off, we're going to touch back on issue number 4. And what we had seen with issue number 4 was that the Earthbound superheroes had engaged Thanos in conflict. And as we had seen, Thanos was able to make quick work of the Earthbound superheroes. And this was for a singular purpose. It was designed to be a diversion, as Adam Warlock had explained it to us. There was no real expectation that the Earthbound superheroes would succeed. The purpose of them was to distract Thanos away from Adam Warlock's actual plan. And the plan that Adam Warlock had was to have the Silver Surfer intervene at the most opportune moment, whereby he would snatch the gauntlet off the hand of Thanos. But as we had seen, Thanos was able to keep this from happening at the very last second and retain the Infinity Gauntlet for himself. And so we saw Adam Warlock bringing in the second group of forces. We saw him introducing the cosmic entities. And as we see with issue number 5, as it begins to open up, is that Thanos is confronting the cosmic entities. And again, I'd like you to notice the amount of arrogance that Thanos is displaying here. What he's telling the cosmic entities is that the power he possesses is beyond anything they could understand. And again, this is Thanos being very arrogant. The first reason why he's so arrogant here, the reason why it seems that he's so confident, is because he possesses all this power. But the other reason here is because he does not necessarily have the same wisdom that a lot of these cosmic entities have, because they've been in existence since the dawn of existence in this reality, because they're manifestations, various representations of reality. For example, eternity being the very representation of the essence of everything within the cosmos. The ongoings of reality itself, of course, has existed since the dawn of reality. So we've seen countless civilizations and countless organisms come into existence and then die. And so for Thanos to appear and to say he knows more than they do is quite an arrogant thing to say. What we also see is that Mephisto is being a little manipulative here. And again, we'll see later on that Mephisto has his own machinations in terms of his involvement with Thanos. But we see that Mephisto is more or less poking fun at Eros. He's talking to Eros about how Thanos, with his absolute power, is most likely going to unleash it in its full force in order to either demonstrate his power to the cosmic entities, or it's going to be necessary for him to defeat the cosmic entities. But because such a vast amount of power is going to be released in such a way that most likely it will result in the destruction of Eros. Now, he says that because Thanos can manipulate the very fabric of reality, most likely he will destroy anything he cares about, restore anything he cares about that had been destroyed, and that this may very well include Eros. But he says that if Eros is brought back, that most likely he will be brought back in the same form as Nebula, more or less a husk of what used to be a sentient being. And so for Eros, this is horrifying. Eros is absolutely distraught at the idea of coming back and kind of walking this line between life and death, not necessarily being considered alive, but not being allowed to die. And so what we see as the conflict begins to unfold, as things begin to progress, is that Thanos unleashes this power that he has. And the way it's done here, it seems to be just absolute power, absolute raw ability. And the Watcher explains to us in telling us that this is the initial clash, this is the initial conflict that the cosmic entities have with Thanos. And what we'll see as the story progresses is that the cosmic entities will each take turns trying to defeat Thanos using the powers that are relevant to them. And what the Watcher tells us here is that he's afraid that this may very well herald the end of the universe. This may bring everything to an end just because of the sheer amount of power that's going to be displayed. But as we see, as things begin to take their toll, as the damage begins to become apparent, that the entire shrine that Thanos had made towards Mistress Death had been destroyed, as well as, according to the Watcher, various solar systems and galaxies within the direct, or I guess the immediate area of where Thanos is unleashing his power from. We then, at this point, switch to Eros, and Eros was absolutely certain he was going to be killed. He was absolutely sure he was going to die. But what was very surprising to Eros was not only the fact that he was very much alive, but the fact that he was being saved or being kept alive by Mistress Death herself alongside Nebula. And so what Eero speculates here is that the hatred that Mistress Death has for Thanos is quite possibly something none of them can understand, just because she's going to the lengths of saving the individuals which Thanos detests the most. And so again, this may simply just be an instance of her saying that she absolutely despises Thanos. At this point, we switch to Adam Warlock and the Silver Surfer. And Adam Warlock comments that it's absolute luck that they survived, that for whatever reason they somehow made it out of here. But almost immediately after the initial explosion and they're sort of calming down due to the fact that they've managed to survive this, there's some kind of strange thing emanating around them. And what Adam Warlock tells the Silver Surfer is that this is an interdimensional distortion cascade. Now, what this means exactly is not something that's explained to us this moment, but what we see as the story continues is that Adam Warlock says that they need to get out of here as soon as they can, because if they get sucked into it, they may not survive. They may be sent to another dimension. They may be eradicated entirely. In addition, this interdimensional distortion cascade is explained to us further once it reaches the planet Earth. And what this seems to be is perhaps a weakening or maybe a dissolving of the barriers between dimensions, between realities. And this seems to become apparent for a couple reasons. The first is that at this point, again, the Earth has been moved or has been sort of bumped out of its orbit from the sun, and so the Earth is becoming colder and colder. But we see that the portal between the negative zone where Annihilus resides and the planet Earth seems to have at the very least been weakened or maybe torn apart entirely. And so Annihilus is able to enter the dimension of the Earth 616 universe and the planet Earth from the negative zone. From here, we see Annihilus continuing to implement his schemes with the cosmic control rod and his forces, saying that they are for the most part going to conquer the planet Earth. At this point, we switch back to Thanos, and what we see Thanos doing is using his Infinity Gauntlet to demonstrate his absolute power, to demonstrate his ability. And as the Watcher describes it to us, this is something to behold, that the heavens themselves tremble. Now again, the important thing to keep in mind here is that despite the fact that Thanos is able to wield all of this power, that it is confined to the Earth 616 universe, that Thanos is not affecting any other universes that may exist or that do exist around him. What we also see is that the Celestials are the first ones to step into the conflict towards Thanos, and the Celestials use various planets as a means to attempt to topple Thanos or attempt to somehow destroy him or incapacitate him. And the Watcher says that these planets are inhabited, although it may very well be that at this point, because they're so far removed from the warmth of the sun that most likely would have kept the inhabitants alive, that they may very well be dead, that it's not relevant, that the goings-on of these organisms, these celestial beings, cannot be a consideration in this conflict, that they have to more or less be sacrificed in order for the greater good to come out. But we see that again, Thanos is able to use the power of the Infinity Gauntlet to easily not only destroy these planets, the forces that the Celestials are trying to use to defeat Thanos, but to defeat the Celestials entirely. Now, it's important to remember Thanos isn't actually killing the Celestials. He's more or less simply just sort of defeating them here. The next group up is, or I guess the next individual up, is Kronos. And again, Kronos is able to manipulate the very fabric of time, and this is what he attempts to do with Thanos. He attempts to maybe somehow bury Thanos within the depths of time, as the Watcher explains it to us, or to maybe send him to a place in time where he doesn't know where he is, or doesn't know how to get back. But again, because Thanos is able to manipulate all facets of time, he immediately travels back to the present, and he more or less is able to defeat Kronos. He's more or less able to do whatever it is that he has to do in order to incapacitate Kronos. At this point, we jump to Master Order and Lord Chaos. And what we see Master Order and Lord Chaos doing here is using their respective powers, using their respective dichotomies, I guess, in an attempt to sort of dichotomize Thanos, in an attempt to, I guess, maybe strip away the order that makes him who he is, the very fundamental fabric of his existence, by separating the element of him that is, I guess, orderly, and the element of him that is absolutely chaotic. Now, what would actually happen in this, whether or not he would simply just split into two separate beings, or he would more or less be a representation of what would happen if matter met antimatter and he would simply just cease to exist, is something that we don't know, because what we see is that Thanos is very easily able to defeat Master Order and Lord Chaos. He's able to, as the Watcher explains it, retain his own individuality. He's able to maintain what it is that makes him a complete being. From here, we switch to the Stranger, to Galactus, and to the representation, I guess, of the new form of Eon. And what we see here is that these individuals attempt to use their absolute power. They attempt to use all the power that's available to them in an attempt to more or less override or to overthrow the power of Thanos, to simply just, I guess, encompass him with so much power that there really isn't anything he can do to stop them. But again, we see Thanos simply just using the power of the Infinity Gauntlet to easily defeat them. And what you're seeing here is this kind of pattern. You're seeing that Thanos is able to more or less just use the Infinity Gauntlet to simply wipe away everything that everybody is, to simply just eliminate them almost entirely. Now again, he's not killing them, he's simply just incapacitating them or demonstrating to them that there's nothing they can really do. At this point, we switch to Thanos sort of having this debate between himself. He's arguing with himself here. He's saying that on one side, that somehow he may have lost his mind here, that these individuals are his friends, they're his heavenly brothers as he describes them. But on the other side, he's arguing with himself. He's saying that they deserve what's taking place here. They deserve the punishment that he's giving them, and that he's going to kill them all. But then we see that Thanos begins to realize what it is that's taking place. He realizes that this is not necessarily an actual argument that he's having with himself, that his emotions, his perspectives are being manipulated, and that these perspectives are being manipulated by Mistress Love and Sire Hate. And again, these are the opposing forces of love and hate within the universe, and Thanos is able to banish them. He's able to defeat them in the same way that he was able to defeat the other cosmic entities. But then we see that Mephisto makes his machinations known. Mephisto surrounds Thanos with Hell's fire, and when he does, he leaps at Thanos and attempts to remove his Infinity Gauntlet. And Thanos is actually a little surprised by this. He's a little shocked to see that Mephisto is attempting to manipulate him. Now, whether or not this is because Thanos is simply just never really taken the time to read the mind of Mephisto, or because Mephisto is somehow able to shield his mind from Thanos, is something that we don't know. But given the fact that Thanos has the Mind Gem and has absolute power over the minds of others, we're most likely led to believe that Thanos had simply just not questioned the allegiance of Mephisto. And again, this is most likely pointing to the arrogance that Thanos had, that anyone is going to side with him because they realize how powerful that he is, and it would be foolish for them to do anything otherwise. From here, we see that Thanos is again able to easily overpower Mephisto, and is in the process, or I guess is preparing to kill Mephisto for his actions. But before he can actually kill Mephisto, we see that the two of them are separated by the actions of a third party. And what we see is that Mistress Death has intervened on behalf of Mephisto and saved his life by more or less pushing Thanos out of the way. And Thanos feels betrayed here. He feels angry here because for him, this is the ultimate step that Mistress Death has taken to demonstrate that not only has he not gained her affections, but that there's nothing he can really do here in this circumstance, as it appears, to please her. Thanos says that he offered her the universe, that he did everything he could to make her happy, but she simply just couldn't accept it. At this point, we see the cosmic entities using their power alongside Mephisto and Mistress Death to I guess intervene while he's distracted, and to blast him with the, I guess, all of their combined powers. But again, Thanos recognizes what it is that's taking place here and immediately overpowers all of them. And when he does, he imprisons them. He places them in some kind of a cosmic stasis. Now, most likely, as is displayed here, or at least as we can see, they may simply just be temporarily, I guess, paralyzed or temporarily imprisoned, but they're not making any effort to escape their bonds. They're not making any effort to escape their struggle. And so it seems as though that for the most part, he's imprisoned and frozen them. So whether or not they actually know what's going on here is something that we don't really know anything about. We're simply just aware that they're frozen in place. And so what Thanos says is that this is the best way for things to function at the moment, that he simply just needs time to focus. He needs time to be unburdened with the emotions of his feelings of betrayal by Mistress Death, and to simply take the time and the logic to decide what his next step will be. At this point, we see that Adam Warlock and the Silver Surfer don't necessarily go as far as to say that all time, or I guess all hope, may be lost, but they're actually going through the process of trying to find survivors, because again, some of these superheroes are still left alive, and so what they say is that among the wreckage, they need to find help. But among the planets that have been destroyed here are some, or I guess at least one planet that the Silver Surfer recognizes, and the Silver Surfer says that he'd visited this planet before. Whether or not it was something he had done on behalf of Thanos or something he was just curious about seeing isn't explained to us, but he says they have to search for these individuals. They have to search for these survivors among the wreckage. Adam Warlock initially advises against it, but the Silver Surfer says that this is an instance whereby he is not going to heed the advice of Adam Warlock, that the desire to protect those that are unable to save themselves as a result of the conflict overrides the fact that they need to sort of regather forces here. But what we see as Adam Warlock and the Silver Surfer approach this planet is that there is no one left, that all these individuals are dead. All these beings that existed on this planet are completely ended, or I guess completely destroyed. From here we see that the Silver Surfer actually takes this quite hard. The Silver Surfer, as is explained by Adam Warlock, is an individual, despite his vast powers, that functions in the same capacity for the most part as other sentient beings, in that he feels love, he feels hate, he feels remorse. And this is a very overwhelming experience for the Silver Surfer to know that the entire inhabitants of this planet have been destroyed in the midst of all this chaos. And so the Silver Surfer says this needs to end. Adam Warlock agrees here. Adam Warlock says that Thanos is a nihilist, and that in order for this conflict to come to an end, that he has to be defeated entirely. Otherwise, he will eliminate all life in the universe. Not necessarily because he's looking to appease Mistress Death anymore, but because he is, in effect, a heartbroken being, and will lash out at virtually everybody. From this point, we see that Eternity has now joined the fray, and Eternity is, as we know, the most powerful of the cosmic entities, and so this conflict between Thanos and Eternity will, for the most part, tell us exactly who it is that is more powerful here, whether or not it's Thanos using his Infinity Gauntlet, or Eternity using the vast power of the very fabric of the Earth 616 universe within itself as a means to combat Thanos. What we see Thanos saying here is that the prize that awaits him with defeating Eternity is something he has struggled for. The absolute authority of power within the universe is something he has strived for, and this, as he explains to us, is the actual result of his plan. This is really what he was looking for when he went about the process of capturing the Infinity Gems. And what we see is that Eternity simply tells Thanos to prepare himself, to defend himself. But before we actually see what takes place between the two of them, there's some kind of an explosion or some kind of conflict, and all we see is a bright light with Adam Warlock and Silver Surfer saying that this can't be the end. This can't be the end of the universe, but that this conflict has to somehow come to an end entirely. From here, we see the Silver Surfer and Adam Warlock more or less surprised by what it is that's going on. And Adam Warlock says that the end of this battle has more or less already been decided. Silver Surfer asks how it is that Adam Warlock knows this. And Adam Warlock says that he's linked to the Infinity Gems in ways that even he doesn't understand. And so the question that's asked here by the Silver Surfer is, who's come out on top here? Is it Eternity, or is it Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet? What he says is that the person who loses is the person who has chosen defeat subconsciously, who has already simply just allowed himself to lose. And so what we see Adam Warlock more or less saying is that the successor here is most likely Thanos. And the reason why is because Eternity recognized the fact that Thanos probably has more power than he does, but that Eternity is not fighting logically, he's not fighting reasonably, he's fighting out of anger, he's fighting out of rage, he's allowing his emotions to get the better of him. And when a person fights in an emotional state, they're not thinking rationally, and by virtue, they can't be intelligent. At this point, we see Adam Warlock telling Doctor Strange that they need to be retrieved, and so Doctor Strange teleports them back to the planet Earth. What we see, again, kind of going on here is this explanation of what all's taken place, that the cosmic entities have been imprisoned. But then we get, I guess, a little further expansion by saying here that that eternity is one of the cosmic entities that has now been imprisoned, indicating to us that Thanos has in fact come out on top, that Thanos has been able to use his power to defeat eternity. And so from here we see that for the most part Thanos doesn't necessarily appear to be dead, he simply appears to be unconscious, and Taraxia is trying to speak with him. She's trying to awaken him from his state, and she asks him to simply just speak, to say something, to do something to indicate that he's alive. But what we see is that Thanos appears in the cosmic entity form of eternity, indicating to us that Thanos has usurped eternity as the absolute authority within the Marvel Earth 616 universe. From here, we're going to bring the first part of video number 5, or I guess of Infinity Gauntlet number 5, to an end, and we'll pick up in the next video when we see this sort of panic taking place, and we see that the defeat of Thanos comes from what we would consider to be the most unlikely person, the one person that none of us had really considered to be a threat at this particular point in time. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.